For the today's session, we'll be discussing about the modeling, segmentation, then mounting parts, as well as reinforcement and shop drawing. So we'll be covering all the 5 parts of precast precast extension for Revit. So let me just start with the project. So I'm just opening a file. As you can see that I have already created the grids and isolated foundations. So let's start modeling it. So in Revit, we have a precast extension in spite of the structure tab and steel tab that is over here. When you click on precast, you will get all the tools related to the precast modeling. So we'll model 4 things over here, that is columns, beams, slabs, and walls. So first we will do the modeling, then we'll do the segmentation, that is splitting, and then how to control the mounting parts, and finally we'll do the reinforcement and shop drawings. So let me just add reinforced column over here. For that, what I can do is, so I'll go to the structure tab. So I want to place columns over here. So what I'll do is I'll go to the insert tab, and from load Autodesk family, I'm going to load the precast column. So here we have different options for precast columns. So I'll be choosing, for instance, the precast rectangular column with cobbles. So let me just load it. Once I load it, I can go to the structure tab and column. You can see in the property dialog box, the precast rectangular column with cobbles. So here I have placed height and level 2. So let me just place 3 columns over here and say escape. Sorry. Column, precast column. Okay. So if I go to the 3D, you can see the columns like this. It is attached with the cobbles. So let me just click on this column, for instance, and I'll go to the edit type over here. And what I'll do is I'll just click on the edit type, and I'll just switch off the cobble west and cobble south. So if I click OK, you can see the cobbles are changed in all other column as well. This is not what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just undoing it, and I'll remove these 2 columns from here, and I'll go with this. So double clicking this, I want to create a separate family for this precast, and I'll be doing it by first saving the file as a family, and I'll just put it as custom or any name as you wish and save it. So once I do this, I have a family type over here. So when I click on family type, I can just manipulate the cobble. So what I'm going to do is I'll just click on this cobble west, and here we have a function called edit parameter. So I'm going to change this parameter to instance. Similarly, I'll be doing it for the south, north, east as well. Okay, so now I have changed it for all the directions, that is west, south, north, and east. Now what I'm going to do is I'll be changing the cobble distance, that is the cobble distance is already given as 600. So I'm going to change it to 300, for instance, and say OK. So these changes will help me to speed up my work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this project, load into project and close. So yes. So now you can see that the columns are ready, the precast columns are ready to be placed in the grid. So here you have to check whether the height and level mentioned are correct. So once it is correct, I am going to place 9 columns over here. So let me just place that 9 columns over here. Escape. So now when you go to the 3D, you can see the columns has been placed. So when I go to level 2, I can see the Cobbles plan view over here. So what I'm going to do is, I'll be just clicking on this particular column, and here you can edit the west, south, north, and east direction corbels, because I have changed all this column corbels to instance parameter. So what I'm going to do is, here in the grid 1, A1 grid, what I'm going to do is, I'm just putting off the north one as well as the west one. Apply. Okay. In this grid, I'm going to change the north one as well as and for this, I'm going to change the north as well as the east one. Here I'm going to change the west. Here nothing. Here again east. So this way I can easily manipulate the properties. For that, we have changed it to instant parameter. Now again west and south. Here again south. Here I'll be changing it to east and south. So now it is ready for placing the beams. So whenever I add my beams, the beam will reflect to the right way. You don't have to change the beam. So the next step was to load the beam. For that, I'll go to the insert tab over here, again load family. So I have to go with the structural framing. Here in Precast Concrete, you have different options for beams. You can use any of them as per your wish, as per your requirement. So here, let me just take Precast beam rectangular nose end. So if I click over here, load, I'll get different options for beam. You can choose as per your project requirement. So here I'm going to select suppose 300 by 500 and say OK. So when you go to the structure, again in the beam, you can find the precast rectangular beam 300 by 500. Make sure that the level here is correct. And now start placing the beam from grid A1. So let me just place it. Okay. So when I go to the north elevation, you can see it is not correctly placed. So let me just check the value. It's almost 400. So what I can do is I'll just click the beam and change the left fork width and right fork width to 400. And apply. Now it is correctly placed. So when you go to the level 2, now what you can do is you can just use the modify toolbars and use the mirror function and place it over the other one as well. And same, I'll just select both, again mirror, place it on the other side as well. And again, click over here, select, copy, I have placed it over here. After that, I'll use the rotate option to speed up the placement of beams. So again, mirror it to the other grid as. So now we have placed the beams in the project. Now the next step is to place the slab. For that, what we have to do is, I'll be going to the floor structural, and here I have in the property dialog box different options. So here I'm going to choose in situ concrete 225, and I just want a floor thickness of 200. So I'm going to edit type and duplicate it. Here I'm going to give it as 200 and say OK. Edit. I'm just removing this. Sorry. And this one will be 200. Okay. So here it is 200 mm thickness. So I'm going to place the slab over here. Using the align tool, I'm just placing it. Enter. So finish. Now we have placed the slab. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just using the mirror tool again. Okay. And I'll be placing it the other side. Again, using the mirror tool, I'm going to place it on the other side. Now in the 3D, you can see the floor, beam and columns has been placed. So this is how I have modeled the precast columns, beams as well as the slab. So next option what we have to do is to place walls. So to place walls, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to choose the wall command and wall structural. And in level 1, I'm going to place the wall. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm just picking the snap points. Okay. So now I have placed the walls. So when I go to the level 1, hover over the walls, and you can see the top offset is 0 and base offset is minus data. So here I'm going to change the base offset to 0 and top offset to 500. So when you go to the 3D view, you can see the wall has been placed. Okay, now I'll just put some openings here. So you'll be thinking why I'm doing everything like this. I want to do the segmentation part in the next step. So for that, I'm creating the walls, slabs, beams, etc. So let me just go to the north view. So here I'm going to place openings, wall opening for the segmentation procedure. So here I'm clicking on the wall and say wall opening, and I'm going to place a window as well as a door. Okay, enter. Now we have placed a door and window over here. So all this helps me in the segmentation procedure. So I have just placed random opening just to simulate the segmentation procedure. So next step, what we are going to do is the segmentation part in the precast. Now just we have modeled the structure. Now I'm going to the segmentation part. So let me just open the same file which we have done. Okay. So for the segmentation, we'll be discussing about the splitting of walls and floors. So first what I have to go is go to precast and say configuration. Before doing the segmentation, you should click on configuration. So I'm just clicking on the configuration. So as you can see now, there is something called synchronization, that is synchronizing the families to project. So these are special families. So each time when you open Revit, you have to start the configuration. So once the configuration is done, now you can see a dialog box which will appear, which is named as configuration. So this is divided into walls, slabs, and you have girder slabs as well in this. So you have walls and slabs. So what you have to do is, when you click on the wall, you have different options, that is part, segmentation, and reinforcement. So when I click on segmentation, you will be able to see a dialog box where you have minimum wall length, minimum wall height, maximum wall height, weight, etc. So when you just input the values of these things like length, minimum wall length, maximum wall length, the segmentation will be taking place based on the input you have given here. So right now what I'm going to do is, I'll just say OK with the maximum wall height is 3000. So when I say OK, I'm just taking a particular wall over here, and I'll do one thing. I'll go to the north elevation again. Right. So when I click on this particular wall, go to the precast and say split. So you can see with the default configuration, I am splitting it. So what happens, based on the 3000 mm height, the wall has been split and the rest of the two parts remains separate. So based on the 3000 mm height, the wall has been split. So let me just undo it. And in the configuration, I'll change the values and see what happens. So I'm changing the maximum wall height to 4000 and say OK. After that, again, I'm clicking on the wall and precast split. Now you can see based on the 4000 mm height, the wall has been split. This is the way you can split different wall segments. So these kind of things like minimum width, minimum height, maximum height, that you want to do that work. This is one of the methods for segmentation of walls. You can manipulate the values inside the segmentation, that is minimum width, minimum height, maximum height, etc. So next, when I go to the north elevation, I'll select both. I'll do the segmentation based on this doors and walls. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just selecting this, I'm just undoing it. Okay, let me select this wall. And here you have an option known as create parts. So click on create parts. After that, what you have to do is just say divide parts. So you have to pick a plane. So here the plane is wall itself. Say OK and pick the wall. So now it is shaded and you can sketch. So click on edit sketch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just picking this line. After that, I'm just showing the line where I need the segmentation. So what I'll do is I'm just drawing edge lines over the door and windows. So all this I'm doing is for segmentation. So this is a different method what I'm showing. So you have to make sure that this sketch line should go above and below the wall for segmentation. So make sure the sketch line go above and below this reference line. So this is very, very important. So I'm just pulling it out below the wall. Again, this one. Okay. And the window also, you have to do the same method. So now you can see that Revit is cutting your wall as you wish. So I'll say finish. Now you can see that they are cut. Now if you go to the properties tab in 3D, say finish. Properties tab, you can see parts visibility. So here I'll be choosing show parts. Apply. So you can see different parts has been created based on the sketch we have provided. So now the next option what I'm going to choose is split. Now you have different parts. So I'll be using the multiple command and I'm choosing the different parts which is created and say finish. Same warning will come. So now the parts has been created based on the sketch which we have given. So now let's go to level 2. Okay, now I want to split the floors. So let me see how I can split the floor. For that, we have to go to the configuration. Again, instead of wall, we have to go with the slab. So we have solid slab, hollow core slab, and girder slab. So what I'm going to do is click on the segmentation. So here we have minimum slab width, maximum slab width, maximum weight, and gap. So based on this input, the slab will be splitting. So suppose if I'm clicking over this particular slab and say edit boundary, you can see the span direction is in this direction. Okay, so let me just check based on this span direction how the segmentation take place. Okay, so let me just go to the configuration in Precast and segmentation. For instance, I'm just putting the gap as 20. Say okay, and I'll say split. So here I'll get a dialog box to choose whether the slab is solid, hollow core, or girder slab. So now I'm choosing solid slab and say okay. You can see it has split based on the span direction, which is this direction. So I'll just undo and show you how the span direction will affect the segmentation. So I'm just clicking on this slab, edit boundary. I'm going to change the span direction to this way and say okay. And again, in the precast, I'm going to split it, solid slab, okay. So you can see based on the span direction, the segmentation has taken place. So this is how the span direction will affect the segmentation. Next, I'll just show you how the hollow core slab works. So again, configuration, go to the hollow core segmentation. You have the profile A over here and minimum width has been given, segmentation gap, all these things you can change based on your project requirement. So suppose if I'm given 20 and say okay, and I'm just choosing this particular slab and precast, again split. So here you have to choose it as hollow core slab. So this segmentation takes place based on that. So if I say okay, you can see if I go to 3D and I'm just I'm just isolating the elements. You can see this is the way segmentation has taken place. Okay, so I'm just changing to reset it to temporary. Okay, so this is the way you do hollow core. Now next one, what I'm going to show is how the girder slab takes place. So suppose in level 1, I'm just placing a slab structural. Simply I'm just placing a slab, say finish, and in the 3D you can see the slab. And again in precast, if I select this particular slab and say split, you can choose the girder slab and say OK. So that has been split. And in the configuration, you can change the girder slab segmentation properties based on your requirement. So this is the process of segmentation. Now let's go to the next one, that is mounting parts. So what I'm going to do is, I'll be doing one example for mounting parts, and you can just go through the other options as well. So in order to do that, I would like to add in this example, for instance, I would like to add grout tubes to some of the wall segments over here. So initially what I have to do is, I'll go to the insert tab, and in load Autodesk family, you have different options available, or in the load family, you can choose whatever is there loaded already. So suppose if I want, let me say structural precast. So here we have an option called mounting parts. So if I click over here, I have different options available. So here I'm going to choose the solid wall grout tools. So already I have loaded it in the project, so I don't want to repeat it. So this is the procedure how you can choose the mounting parts. So from here you have to open it so that it gets placed loaded on the project. So what I'm going to do is, I'll go to north elevation, and I'll choose any of the wall over here for the mounting parts. So the best way to do is, I'll just select this wall segment, and I'll say isolate that particular element. Okay, so if you just see the dimension of that, 4080. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I need grout tubes placed over here at the bottom and distribute them in a good way. So the best way to do that is, we'll add 5 reference plane over here, and for that we'll be dividing this 4080 into 6 segments, and in each segment I'll be placing the grout tubes. So what I'm going to do is, go to the structure, reference plane, and as we already know that this is 4080, so for 6 segments it will be approximately 680, which I have calculated and kept. So when you click over here, you will get different work planes spaced at 680. Okay. So now you have these many work planes. So you have 6 segmentation over here. So now I want to place the grout tube. That is the mounting part. So for that, I'll go to architecture and place a component. So I'm going to place a component. So here I can search, since I have already loaded it and kept grout, solid wall grout tubes. You have 3 different options. So if I choose D24, you can place it over here. Since you have this reference plane, it is easy to place it equally. So for this, we have placed the reference plane. So now you have these many grouts placed over here. Okay, so if I go to the reset, you can see over here. And let me just go to the level 1. I just want it on the opposite direction as well. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just create a section over here. and I'll just say go to view, and I can see the reference planes over here. So what I'm going to do is I'll be placing the grouts on these reference plane as well. So again, I'll go to the architecture, place a component. I'm going to place the D24 grout tubes over here so that I'll get it in the both sides. I'm just placing it. Make sure the snap points are correct. Okay, say escape. So now we have placed the grouts in the 3D. You can see that in wireframe. You can see the grouts which has been placed in 3D. So this is the way you can insert the mounting parts into a project. So the next step, what I'm going to do is, I'll just go and select in Precast mounting parts. So if I click mounting parts, added 10 elements to one assembly. So that means 10 grout tubes has been added as mounting parts. Okay, so this is the way you can add by using the architecture context tab, where you have the component. That component you can place, or if it is not there, you can load it from Autodesk. So this is the way you can use the Precast mounting parts tab. So the next one I'm going to discuss is reinforcement. So let me just close this. And I'll open the reinforcement. Okay, so same project, I'm going to do the reinforcement. So in the reinforcement of Precast, the software will do everything. We just have to configure it. So what I can do is I'll just go to the south elevation over here, and in the configuration tab in the Precast, which I have mentioned before also, you have for wall, there is a reinforcement tab, and for slab also we have a reinforcement tab. So coming on to the wall, you can see two types of reinforcement, that is fabric reinforcement and edge reinforcement. You have two different options, fabric reinforcement and edge reinforcement. So for instance, I am going to change the fabric to layers. Let me just double click, and I'm going to change it as, like, let's say my project, so that I can identify which one I have changed, and say edit. Here you have mesh option as well as steel bar. For steel bar, you have to use the rebar type, all those things. For mesh, I can just click on the mesh and I can specify whether it is inside, outside, or center. After that, you can choose the fabric type over here. So let me just put W20/4. Also, you can put the cover offset. So after completing this, outside also I'm going to change. After completing this, say finish. And for the edge reinforcement, I can use any one of this. So suppose if I'm changing the L bars, again, I'll put it as our project. Sorry, my project, and say edit. I can use the parameters, like the number of layers I can change to 2, 3 as well. And here the type, you can change it over here, whichever type you want, you can choose it from here. And the overlapping length also you can change. Suppose I'm changing it to 500. And rebar type, you can change the diameter of the rebar and say OK. So once it is done, what I'm going to do is I'll say OK. After that, I have to choose the wall. So let me just pick this particular wall, and in the precast, I have reinforcement. Click on reinforcement. Sorry. So area reinforcement, if I drop down, you will get the one which I have saved already. Fabric 2 layers, my project. For that, you have to specify the name. So since I have specified the fabric 2 layers, my project, I can take that one. And for the edge, I can take the L bars, my project, and say OK. Now the rebar has been placed. When you go to 3D, I'm just selecting everything and filter. And structural rebar. Okay. And in the view visibility, I'll be changing it for a better view. So if I go to the file, you can see the rebar has been placed. So this is the way you place rebar for the fabric reinforcement for the walls. Now let me just go to the configuration again. If I want to place reinforcement in the slab, similarly you can go to configuration. You can take the reinforcement over here, solid slab reinforcement, you can edit, you can change the name as well, double clicking over there. And here you can use steel bar and you can mention the rebar type, whatever diameter it is. Then you can change the rebar outside also by changing the diameter and say okay. And the similar way you can do it for slab as well. And suppose if I want to change the rebar for the girder, let me just go to the configuration. And here you have reinforcement. Here you have reinforcement type girder slab 1 and reinforcement type girder slab 2. So you can edit it. You can give the rebar type, the diameter, everything, and mention the position, whether it is top or bottom. And for this reinforcement type girder 2 also, you can edit all the parameters over here and say finish. And if you have a girder over there, suppose we have a girder over here. So if I want to place the reinforcement for this, I'll go to precast, say reinforcement. I'm choosing reinforcement type girder slab 1, say okay. So you can see it has been placed. Let me show it in wireframe. You can see it has been placed. So this is the way you can place reinforcement in different components. So it's just a single click. You can place the reinforcement after inputting the parameters. So next one, what I'm going to discuss is the shop drawings. So let me just close this. And I'm going to click on the shop drawings. So here you can see that the software does the shop drawings automatically. So when I go to the precast configuration, here you have shop drawing for the wall, shop drawing for the slab, and shop drawing for the girder slab. So it says that the shop drawing template, like if I click on the shop drawing, you have the shop drawing template over here. You have center of gravity and you have dimension type. Whatever dimensions you want, you can change. Like the dimension styles, you can change over here. And once you do that, you have a data folder location over here that refers to where it gets stored. So all are generic settings, and the shop drawing template is actually provided by the software. So when I click OK, the settings is fixed. Now directly let's go to the shop drawings over here. And let me pick a particular wall. Suppose I'm going to pick this wall. And 1 second. I'll just select the wall first, precast shop drawings. So you can see within a couple of seconds, you will get the shop drawing. So now we got the schedule along with the shop drawing. So you can see how the schedule is obtained, like the exterior wall, fabric sheet, all the quantities has been given over here. And when you go to the sheet, which is automatically generated from the shop drawing, you can see the shop drawings arranged in using a particular template which is pre-programmed in the software. So the sheet is printable and you can make adjustments with the table. If I pull it over here, I can just change the sheet by just pulling it and adjusting. So this is how you generate the shop drawing, and it's actually generated using the template which is pre-programmed in the software. So when I go to this particular table, if I right click over here, I have edit schedule. So it will directly take me to edit schedule part. And what I can do is I can change the fields, I can change filter it, and I can sort it and group it. All those functions which are there in the Revit structure as well as architecture, we can implement it here. And formatting we can use, and appearance we can use. Suppose if I am choosing the blank row before data, if I click it on, say OK, you can see the difference which happened over here as well as in the sheet. So this is the way you can manipulate it just by clicking the table and right clicking and edit schedule. So this function you can use. Now if you look at the sheet, you can see it is not there in the property dialog box, project browser. It is not available in the sheets. But when you just scroll it down, you can see that in the assemblies. So it will be placed on the assemblies. So what I can do is I'll just go down. So if I click on the girder slab, suppose girder slab 027, if I click on the 3D view, 3D ortho, you can see it has been generated. The view has been generated. If I want the elevation front, it has been generated. Everything is stored in this particular assembly. So detail view, elevation top, you can see over here. If you want the schedule part list, you can click over here. You can directly get that. Schedule rebar list, you can get it over here. So if I click on sheet girder slab, similarly, you can get all the ones which have generated by using the shop drawing function over the precast context bar. So you can see the printing, the shop drawings is created automatically by the software. So it is printable. So everything over here is automatic. So I will just show you another one. Suppose if I'm clicking on this particular slab and in the precast tab, I'm going to choose the shop drawings. See, the schedule is automatically generated. You can see the schedule is generated and the part list also the sheet is also being generated. So you can just pull it over and place it in the required position. So this is also printable now. So whichever part you select, you can get the 3D drawing, the shop drawing of that particular part. So this is how you generate the shop drawings using the precast shop drawing option. So I have discussed the modeling part, the segmentation part, mounting parts. I have not explained each and every mounting parts, but I have shown you how to use the mounting parts tool over here. And then the reinforcement, how to do the reinforcement part of precast. Then finally the shop drawing, how to generate the shop drawings.